Hey everyone. Henri, once again, thank you so much for giving me the space and the opportunity to talk about things that I've been doing. We'll get into webvitals.com in a second, but a little bit about me. What's up everyone? I'm Serge. I'm a developer experience engineer at Sentry. Previously I worked at Shopify, Coinbase, and a couple of different startups doing full stack, but mostly front end dev work. I was always like, performance is a function of care for the product that you're building. And so I never got the opportunity to really dig into it as deep as some of the other folks that are doing it. But it is an important, like, performance is a feature. I think I saw that tweet from someone a while ago. And so that's kind of like how I tend to think about these things. Um, I also came second during the Bolt hackathon that happened in June. That was in the world. Not to brag, a little bit of a vibe coder myself. If you ask me, I'm a loving husband, so I have a ring. It's not an engineering ring like some people here, but it is a ring nonetheless. And my wife is a huge supporter that always shows up to these events, which I really appreciate. I'm still figuring out what to put on these slides, but a little bit of a timeline. I don't know if you guys can see it really well, but Sentry bought the domain webvitals.com sometime last year by a friend of the Toronto tech ecosystem, Ben Vinegar, if people know him. But yeah, it was an idea. I think he saw it somewhere, and Sentry sometimes does things like, why not? I was too scared to ask how much they bought it for because it is a pretty good .com domain. So that happened. And then in 2025 in the summer, I joined, and my manager, Cody, was like, hey, we have this domain that we bought last year. And it was like a static pages that were talking about all the different web vitals. Um, do something with it. Let's see if we can make a return on investment. Which hasn't panned out yet to my knowledge, but it's a work in progress. And so in September, I worked on it. I put it together, and we launched it, and it's there. And then last week we officially launched it on Twitter. And again, all it means is that somebody tweeted about it. So it hasn't gotten huge traffic. We'll get into it afterwards, but I think it would be nice to kind of talk through what's going on this domain and maybe make it a little bit bigger. But the idea is, the way that I thought about it was, I'll get into it after. We have a input box, which is something that developers are used to these days, is just seeing one input box and seeing what it does. We'll come back to that later, but here I'm just showing the web vitals for this page. So these are live web vitals coming in from Google. You can see they're all pretty good. So it doesn't take much, but it's a Next.js application. The latest Next.js. I'm not using any of the fancy new cache components or anything like that. But I wanted to give people a visual representation of what these web vitals mean. And I spend a little bit too much time crafting these little animation, which I thought were pretty cool. But you have largest contentful paint, interaction to next paint, time to first byte, first contentful paint, and cumulative layout shift. This is all using motion. It used to be called Framer Motion. Now it's motion.dev. It's a JavaScript animation library. It's pretty nifty. And then if you click into any of these cards, that gives you like a little playground for these metrics. And so if you click this, I have the web vitals at the bottom here. Maybe we'll make it a little bit bigger. Oh. And so if I keep clicking it, again, I'm like suspending the interaction every single click. But you can see Google tracks web vital, like INP is something that they track as the last thing in there. And this will match the, oh God, application. Jesus, I should have mirrored it. Performance, I think that's where Google will put it. Yeah, so INP, 334 milliseconds. Checks out, and then we press it again. No magic here. It's just Web Vitals, Google has an npm package that you can install and pull those in React using hooks. Let's close this back down and go back to the actual main page here. And so you talked about, Rick, you talked about google.com. Let's take a look at what the examples will be. And what this is an agentic experience. So this is using AI SDK from Marcel, and it has a couple of tool calls baked into it. One is analyze performance, which is essentially doing a API call to Google PageSpeed. It gets the crux data from this domain in mobile and in desktop. It also gets the Lighthouse report. The problem that I ran into with this for the Lighthouse report was it's like 1.5 megs of JSON with a lot of different, like the audits are very descriptive and very convenient. But for things like a Next.js application where it chunks your front end, it'll tell you like, oh, fix this CSS in this chunk somewhere here. And it's not super indicative of, like, as a developer, what I should be doing with this. So I am omitting the Lighthouse audit from this experience for now. But it shows you the crux data, which is the 75th percentile of all users using this URL on Chrome. It doesn't count like iOS users that use Chrome because that's WebView. So the WebKit, like Safari, essentially. But essentially, the majority of people using this domain will get this kind of experience where it's pretty good, I guess. Can't complain here. Again, a little bit of animations. I wanted this to feel more like an interactive experience rather than just like, here's the reports, have fun with it. And the other tool, and I hide the tools once it's done generating the response. I don't know why. But that was a Cloudflare scanner URL API call, which they have this option, or like this part of the response is this thing called WAPA, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, Vapalizer, which essentially is like a Chrome extension where it gives you like all the tech stack of the application. And so I thought, like, just because there is a page speed score here, it would be really helpful to have the context of what the technology that this website is built in, put it together into a prompt and send it to an agent. And at the bottom, we get this kind of like formatted view of suggestions, or if there are issues, it'll be more descriptive of like, you should probably fix this, with details on how to do it. It's not perfect, but it is an experience, and we'll talk about why we built this in the future. There's also, obviously, call out Sentry. Sentry tracks real user metrics. So once you instrument the SDK, we track all the web vitals, we track traces and spans of like all the operations that are happening on the front end and the back end. But this is a primer for people that are like, want to learn more about web vitals, how it works, and if they want to see it on their own applications, they can also instrument Sentry. One of the things with Crux is it's only for publicly accessible pages. So if you have an application that's like authenticated and you still want to make sure that like the pages that our users are actually interacting with are still performing well, Crux is not something that would probably help you in that case. This is not a Sentry ad, but if you want to use Sentry, that'd be cool. And then there's like these follow-ups that you can ask, which essentially is just like taking the context of that conversation already, passing it back to an agent. So like rethinking the way these tools have existed for a long time. Why did we build this? Isn't there something already out there for this? And obviously the answer is yes, there are multiple resources out there that have done this for a long time, that are the industry standards like PageSpeed Web Dev and webpagetest.org, and you have Chrome DevTools, and you have Lighthouse, and Chrome recently came up with an MCP server. So like, you don't even need to leave your text editor, and you can just be like, hey, go to this page and figure out what my like vitals are and fix it for me. And to me, the reasons are like, I really appreciate the fact that I could explore this like concept of performance and web vitals through a different lens, and look for an opportunity to educate and like having a way to like physically showcase what these web vitals mean and how they are measured and what impact they have on your performance. And obviously in this like new agentic world, and obviously experiment with new technology and like dog food, the things that we're doing with Sentry, because webvitals.com is instrumental with Sentry. So it gives me like a way to test some of the things that we're doing with the like agentic communication. So as the question was like, how do you track performance of agentic systems, and like what's the time to first token, and like how long a response takes to complete. Like those are the things that people will care about, because that's what's going to impact the user experience. If users sitting there waiting for an agent to respond, if it's beyond the certain threshold, I don't know if there's studies already about like when they bail out, and like what's the bounce rate for people interacting with agents. Like it's a very interesting world that we're kind of shifting into, and a lot of people that are new to development worlds that might not read blog posts, or like I wanted to give people another way to like learn about these things in experience, in a way that they're already used to like interacting with technology, which is through an input box. Um, this is just kind of like a primer, or like a way that I think about the different results and why I chose to go with Crux and Rum for now. But like if you look at Lighthouse is something that like a car manufacturer will put on their website of like, here's our top speed, here's our miles per gallon, here's all the things that like we crafted in our lab, in our very controlled test environments, and this is what we can put on the page. And that's kind of what a Lighthouse report does. Again, people here can definitely correct me if I'm wrong. Crux is more like your consumer report. So it's like data from a lot of different people about the usage and how they're finding that usage. So it might not be one-to-one with what the manufacturer says. And Rum, like real user metrics, to me, it's like either owning the car yourself and like actually using it, or going to like a trusted source like Doug Demura, for anyone who watches him. But that's someone that I would probably trust more than Consumer Report or the car manufacturer's website. So again, like these are different options. These are different metrics. Don't rely on either one of those too much. I don't think. Like a lot of people are like, oh, well, look at my Lighthouse score. Like it's perfect. But you're on a super powerful MacBook Pro running it on a 2 gigabit internet connection, and your users are somewhere across the world where they might not be experiencing the same thing. So definitely have all of these tools in your tool belt to figure out how do you make your website more performant. Again, just to mention real quick about Sentry, we do track RUM, so we have specific sections of our applications that are designed for front-end insights for performance, like Web Vitals, where we give you a score based on, I think it's also the 75th percentile of like all the users interacting with all of your applications. And the beauty of Sentry is because it's instrumental within your application. If you have pages that are authenticated, you'll get all that data there. Again, other things that come into real user metrics that aren't just Web Vitals are things like session replays, browser tracing, resource downloads, all that kind of stuff. So, and like beyond just giving you the raw data, one of the things that we recently shipped is Web Vitals performance issues. So previously Sentry would have performance issues for your database query. So if you have a slow database query, Sentry would automatically send you an issue being like, hey, you should probably fix this, like N+1 issues or slow database queries. Web Vitals were never treated as things that are like, you should probably look at. And so we're very careful with this as well. We don't want to like give you a lot of noise and a lot of false signals. So these are only for like very slow performing pages. And beyond just notifying you that something is broken, Seer is this AI agent that Sentry has inside of it, which will help you kind of find the root cause of all of those issues. And the beauty of Seer is because it has all the context of all your other errors in Sentry, all the traces and all of the kind of like performance data, it is usually pretty good at identifying what the actual issue is and then proposing a fix for you to do it. If you want to chat about any of that, I'm around. Oh yeah, one more thing. Webvitals.com became open source today. So I was partially scared to put it out there because of the shitty code that it is. But I think it's a good thing for people to take a look at how it works, what kind of things we use. It's also instrumented with Sentry, with like custom spans and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good way to familiarize yourself with an application like this, a little like an agentic experience and calling different APIs. And so if you're curious about stuff like that, and if you want to give it a star, it's over there. Yeah, that's it. If you have any feedback, if you have something to share, I'm on all these things like an email, Bird app, and the Butterfly app. Thank you all for hanging out.
How have you found the crux data? Like, are you finding that like when you put in different sites that people are interested in, are you finding the crux data to generally be useful? Or are you hitting issues with like sites that you're interested in not having data, or just, I'm interested in your experience with crux.
So the biggest thing with crux data is because it's 29 days or whatever long the period is. Sentry.io, for example, had a really shitty LCP on mobile for a while, and they fixed it, and I was like, perfect, let me double check that. And it takes time for it to update. And so yeah, like that's another caveat of the crux data is
why we do that, right? So that people have a reason to buy Sentry. I'm partially joking, but part of the idea with crux was, let's make a free product that is like a taste for people, so that they want to go out and buy Rum products, because Rum products are the really powerful like tools for really understanding the performance of your own site.
Yeah, and I guess like, does Google Analytics fall into that category a little bit as well? So it's not like so people buy Sentry, but it's like so people use other products within Google.
Yeah, I don't know the analytics. Crux is from the Chrome team. I don't know what the analytics team people think.
Right.
But the other one, of course, is just there's privacy concern. There was some granularity, averaging it over time, reduced the risk of some attacks.
But I will say sometimes, so these are like Cloudflare on a free tier, and the page speed API. I don't know what the thresholds are. Like we have a GCP, like we're a Google, Sentry is a Google shop, so big fans of Google over there. But there are times when there are concurrent people trying to hit the API. Google will 500 without giving me a lot of good details. So at that point, even Sentry doesn't really help, because it's just like 500 error. So it would be nice to know what's going on there.
Yeah.
The only reason I did this talk and I knew you were coming is to get feature requests and figure out what's going on. Offline. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks.
Amazing. Did we just witness an issue being filed?
Hey, Sergey. I used to use Sentry for error tracking on our serverless environment, like Lambdas and stuff. What I want to know is, how are you differentiating yourself from Rum? For example, we use New Relic. It has the JavaScript running on our single page applications and our web pages normally. Then we have synthetic monitoring, and New Relic uses core web vitals to give us the data.
Yeah.
How are you really differentiating yourself with this? Like, what would make me go out of Rum and actually start using this in Sentry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was just at Cube reInvent, and there's a lot of similar questions of like, well, we use this for this, and why don't we? What's the sale for Sentry? And the short answer, I think, is context, and the idea that historically you would have errors in Sentry, logs in another tool like BetterStack or whatever, New Relic, Grafana. And when it comes time to understanding why something broke, a lot of those things might be correlated. And so as a developer, you end up going to 5 different tools and have 5 different tabs open, trying to pinpoint the actual, like, okay, well, there's bad web vitals here. And like something like TTFB being a bad web vital, like that's just a signal of something being slow on the server, and TTFB or FCP or whatever. And so the best thing about Sentry is that you get that context baked into it. And so like if you look at your front end and you have your front end instrumented and your back end, you can actually see the full picture of like, okay, well, these are the things that happen, and this is the reason why we have a bad web vital score. it's actually somewhere down here on the server running in an environment that like the front end doesn't know about or the web vitals don't really know about. So I think that's my answer, is like tracing, logs, errors, all these vitals, kind of like having all of them in one place really gives you the superpower to like identify and get to the root cause of an issue quicker. We have mobile vitals on the like React Native, Swift, like Android, iOS. So we do this. We do like cold app start time, warm app start time. So some of it is finicky sometimes, but we do try to do this.
Yeah, we're doing a POC right now to figure out a good mobile application monitoring tool. That's why I was curious that if you're doing the same thing for mobile application as
Yes,
well.
we do. We should give it a try.
Before someone else raises their hands, I'm going to ask you this. And I may have missed part of it, but you'd mentioned that you guys were using Wapalizer and then taking the results and sending it somewhere. Where are you sending it and why?
So all of this stuff, the way that this works is there's a backend API endpoint that's like API/chat. And that uses the AI SDK that has two tools, one for page speeds, one for Cloudflare. It's like a Cloudflare scanner URL, which gives you Wapalizer data. And I'm not sending it anywhere. Like this has no backend, this has no database. All I'm doing is I'm taking those results, putting them together with the Crux results, and just feeding it to an agent, being like, hey, here's the technology this is using, here's the cumulative, like here's all the scores that this website has. Give me some insights into how this can be improved. And so like Wapalizer data will come back with like, okay, this is using React, this is used like, a lot of it is not necessarily useful information because a lot of it will be like, oh, it's instrumented with like Google Analytics or like all these different third-party trackers or whatever. But some of it is like, here's the technology that this is using. And so I want to make sure that like when we're giving answers, they're contextual to like, this could be a React problem, or this is like an Angular or a Swift thing. And that scanner URL helps kind of like identify those technologies.
If you're not shipping the data anywhere, the only analysis you're doing is current. So if there's no controller and nowhere to, how do you handle historical data? Even with the agent, it's if I ask for like a week prior data, how are you going to handle that?
So this is specific to webvitals.com. Like this application is like completely separate from how the Sentry SDK collects this telemetry.
Got it.
All of that telemetry is stored in Sentry and like.
Yes. I'm not shipping anywhere. I'm like,
Yeah. No. We have, I think it's a 90-day retention on all of our stuff. So